What is up and welcome back to the channel. I'm going to showcase Sentinel today, which if you're an upholder at any point in time, you can unlock it by opening the Book of Lore. Not a big deal. Talking about enhancements now, Ravenous seems to be the best from what I tried. Ravenous is just a very strong enhancement to use in the late game, especially for boss fighting. If you don't have it, you can use Dauntless for specific fights or Valiance. Those can be pretty useful as well. But if you purchase this at early levels, maybe you have an alt or you're just new to the game, you can use Spiral Carve or enhancement or even Smite. Smite is pretty decent. For the helmet, I'll just go with simply having Anima Clairvoyance. But if you want to have survivability, simply use either Forge enhancement or Luck. For the cape, I would go with Vainglory, just for farming stuff. The fight is rough, go Penitence, or just either Luck or Forge. Not a big deal. Now let's discuss how the class works a little bit, because it can be a little bit confusing. It's not a very complicated class, it's pretty easy to use. Once you understand how the mechanics work, you gain a big boost of defense here for 3 seconds, which can only happen once per fight, okay, just to get rid of any confusion. Then you apply some debuffs based on which stance you are in, the most important being that if you're in offensive stance, there's a damage resistance debuff on the opponent by 30%. Keep in mind, the luck reduction, by the way, only works against players for some reason. I assume monsters don't have any luck stat. And yeah, this class is very strong in PvP, but we don't care about that too much. Then you have a defensive stance, which does damage based on your current health. The higher it is, more damage. And grants an HOT if you are in this stance. The offensive stance heals you, it's a drain, based on your missing health, similar to DOT class to some extent. And the damage is also greater. Then you gain a 50% crit damage buff. 3%, pretty sizable. Your fourth skill deals damage to yourself, and then it applies some buffs. Though the buff is different based on the stance, so defensive stance, 50% endurance, offensive stance, 35% crit chance and physical resistance. This effect lasts for 15 seconds, so you don't want to be spamming this ability unless you want to bring yourself to lower HP, maybe because you are using Dauntless or something. Let's have a look at the rank 10 passive. You're reducing your target's dodge with all skills except the fourth one, reducing your target's dodge chance by 25%, stacking up to minus 500% dodge, which is a very niche use. Can be used against bosses that just have very high dodge, in which normally you'd use Lord of Water, Sovereign of Storms, maybe Shaman, etc. Based on how many stacks you had, your fifth skill is going to deal a big nuke. It's on a sizable cooldown. Then it reapplies 2 stacks right away, and reduces heal power, heal reduction debuff 95% for 7 seconds. Since this can go down to 9 seconds cooldown, there's only a 2 seconds downtime, which means you can apply this almost permanently on a monster, and that already makes me think it's decent while fighting, for example, Dage. Or maybe even First Speaker. So let's just do a damage test and explain a bit how the class actually works. You're going to start with the offensive stance. Doesn't really matter exactly how you start the fight. I'm just gonna start with the offensive stance and then use my nuke. And the main takeaway here is that you want to use 2-3, 2-3 or 3-2, 3-2, depending on which stance you want to sit in. If you want to be defensive, use 3-2, 3-2, etc. But if you want to be offensive, you just want to use 2 followed by 3. and whenever you need to get the buff back up before it expires, you can use the other stats. As you can see, I'm not even getting the best run. The DPS is very high. Alright. And we can also try a survivability test at Graves Challenge. Why not? Let's try fighting the Primarch, see how it goes. Maybe go a bit more defensive. Run a Penitence. Maybe run just a decent random potion, see how it goes. And of course, I want to start the fight ideally by sitting in defensive mode for healing. But the buff that I want is probably the damage reduction. I think it's gonna be more useful than the endurance. So before I switch, I'm going to sit there. And as you can see, we are doing a great job at soloing it. This is one of the hardest things to solo in the game. It's a pretty good test of its survivability. Yeah, not hard to use. So here, my combo was a bit different. I wanted the debuff of damage reduction and crit chance, but I wanted to also get a HUT. So I would use 3, 4, then 2, and then I'm gonna use 3, 2, 3, 2, 3, 2 until I need a buff again, while using Dour Duty whenever I have the chance. It's pretty easy to solo, quick, and effective. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video. Bye bye.